We're ready.
right.
We're rolling, Josh. So whenever you're ready, let's go.
This is punishing me. So I'm gonna give you the most just drab intro ever. Hi everybody. Welcome to the Once More for Safety show. I am one of your hosts, Josh. I'm here with Matt.
I am Matthew. How are you today, Joshua?
I am feeling very robotic, but today we have a very special guest joining us. Oh wait, I was being rude. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, well, I'm doing all right. Better now that I'm making you do the intro, because it's always funny listening you try to do it. So
Listening to me struggle through the intro of a show that
it's just like when you direct, it's always a struggle. It's always
50% of the time I forget the name of the show. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Hey,
Megan's face was great.
You what?
I said Megan's face was great when I said that. I just tease him, Megan. I just tease him.
Well, since Matt spoiled it, we're hanging out with Megan today. She's our guest on the show. So everybody clap at home and welcome Megan.
Hi.
Yay!
Okay, there, I've done my part, Matt. Passing it on.
Okay, so Megan, we are very happy to have you here. Josh and I just got to be on set with you for a few weeks on Pigface, which was very fun and exciting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But as we do, I don't know if you've ever seen any of these shows or any of the interviews that we've done yet.
Okay. I watched a few in preparation.
Oh, okay. So at the very top, whenever we interview somebody, what we do is we ask them rapid fire 12 questions. So Josh is going to ask you 6. I'm going to ask you 6. And the thing about this is you can't sit there and think about it. It's just got to be like boom, 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 rapid fire. First sort of thing that comes to mind. And I don't know, Josh, do you want to kick us off?
I don't care. I'm just going to ask the same goddamn question I always start off with. I'm very angry today.
You are? Jeez.
I'm not that angry. Megan, what is the worst candy on the planet and why is it orange slices?
Oh, that hurts.
I don't think I agree that it's orange slices. I think that it's circus peanuts.
Oh, I think we had that answer before as well.
That,
yeah, nobody likes the circus peanuts. Okay, my question here. Taking out any creative arts sorts of jobs, acting, writing, directing, anything like that, what would be your dream job?
I almost went into law as a lawyer. I was looking pretty deeply into being an attorney ad litem. Family law, I was thinking, or criminal law. What interested me with family law was that the attorney ad litem was someone who could advocate for the child. Mom, dad, or whatever parents and guardians were in the picture were not trustworthy enough to advocate for the child, so your only job is to advocate for the child. Everybody else be damned.
Megan, would you rather go to a play or go to a concert?
Play.
Name your top 3 sodas in ascending order.
Ascending
Jesus.
order? Like starting with 3 and then going to 1? Ginger ale, cherry Sprite, root beer.
Favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Does it count if I stayed up overnight and then at 1 in the morning watched Whose Line Is It Anyway?
That counts. It's not a cartoon, but that counts.
It's not a cartoon. All right, what is the best video game of all time?
Mario Party.
Megan, would you rather watch a horror, a comedy, or a horror comedy?
Horror?
Should Scott Frost be fired?
That's a bullshit question. Strike that. Don't answer that, Megan. Megan, what's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Yes. All right. Someone's writing a book about your life. What is the title?
Oh, shit.
What is the worst flavor of ice cream?
Bone broth flavored. That was pretty fucking bad. Would not
Bone
recommend.
broth?
0 out of 10.
Wow. Wow. Okay, cool. Well, Megan, you have survived the rapid fire portion of this interview. How are you feeling right now?
Pretty good.
All right, Megan. So we sort of like to start at the very beginning with all of our guests and just sort of work our way through and sort of talk a little bit about your creative process, how you got into it and stuff. So as I've said to everybody that we've talked to, let's go all the way back to little girl Megan. What got you interested in sort of the creative arts?
I have thought about that for a while, and I genuinely couldn't tell you when it started. I went to a small private school, so we were just kind of required to be in the school play every year. Like it wasn't you didn't audition until you were in like 5th grade, and then you could have the speaking roles. Everybody was just kind of like, here you go, and that's what you did during your music class for a couple months. But I enjoyed it, and then I actively started seeking it out. And then when I went to high school, I was like, I don't like my high school program. So I started seeking it outside of high school. And then I switched high schools and liked that program. So started doing it in high school and then just decided I was sticking with it.
What makes you love performing?
I like stories, um, just of any capacity. Just the weird things that you have to do on set make for really funny stories. Finding out whether or not it's real or fictitious, just learning this new story. You've created something entirely new and created people entirely brand new, but somehow they're still relatable and understandable, and someone it feels like you would know.
Interesting. Okay, I always like to sort of dive into like the beginning inner workings because I've always felt that, and I've told this to people that I've directed in the past. Like you guys can do things that I would never do. Right? I don't have sort of like the inner strength to get out there and put myself in front of a camera and sort of show that vulnerability and sort of taking the arrows. If something doesn't go well or the performance doesn't come across right, what people just naturally inherently think when they see something like making fun of people or something like that. So I always felt it's a very there's like a strength to actors and performers that certainly someone like I would never have. That's why I was always behind the camera and never really in front of it. How do you feel like towards just acting in general? Is acting like your number one passion, or do you have other things that you would prefer to do? Like, for example, when I first got into it, I was like, hey, yeah, let me try some special effects. And then I was like, oh, directing is the thing that I really want to do. Is acting the thing that you want to do, or do you have other aspects of the creative arts that you're interested in more?
Yeah, acting's number one for me. I've done a little bit of directing and I really enjoy it, but every time I direct, I'm just like, I want to be up there. So I think acting is the number one.
Um, I'm just curious, Megan. So you said you went to the like a private school where they kind of like just you kind of had to act in the program because they needed people to do that or whatever. So what were you pretty like open to that then when you first started? Like, were you kind of introverted or were you already like kind of an extroverted person and had like no problem, getting out there and just kind of doing it?
Oh, I've always been introverted. I'd still say I'm introverted. I just can be extroverted for a certain amount of time and then I go home and take a long nap. Um in school I was horribly horribly painfully shy, but for whatever reason when it came to acting, that wasn't me, so I didn't have to be.
Right.
So I was always pretty open to it and pretty excited for it.
Do you remember the first role that you like had to audition for, or first play you auditioned for? And do you remember the first like role that you ever kind of got? Do you remember that? I'm just curious.
Um,
I like to talk theater, and like I'd rather talk theater over film like every day of the week. But so that's why I ask these questions.
it would probably be I did a couple of small things like through our church, and I would guess that it would be the youngest daughter in The Music Man.
Okay, gotcha. All right, cool. Um, so then Matt's gonna totally stomp on me for this question. I can't wait. So
What?
when
I
did you,
would never.
yeah. So when did you kind of transition then from like because did you if you did you continue to do theater after high school? Did you do other theater
Yeah,
projects?
that's what I got my degree in was theater
Okay.
and acting. Yeah.
So when did you kind of like transition into like film or when did you get interested in like auditioning for film and stuff?
COVID, interestingly enough,
Oh, wow, okay.
I did audition. I was in a musical right out of college in 2020 when people were still like, I don't know if we can do this or not. But they tried, and we didn't have any COVID cases within the cast, so good on them. And it just like nothing was happening. Nobody was putting anything on play wise, musical wise. And I happened to stumble across something for a small like short film that would maybe be turned into a series, and I was like, I'll just do that, I guess. And ended up getting it. And went there. It was just a day. Ended up loving it, and then figuring out, oh, there's a lot more acting opportunities in film than there are in theater in Lincoln and Omaha. So I just started kind of going towards that and transitioning to that. And I've really, really enjoyed it to a point where it probably rivals or is maybe slightly above theater acting for me.
Yeah,
All right.
that's what I'm talking about. I do have a quick question about that because I am interested in discussing the differences that you see between being on stage and working on a film set. But circling back to question Josh had about the introverted nature of things, and I think it was a really good question because I was a very introverted person as well growing up. So it was very difficult for me to sort of transition into sort of becoming a quote unquote director because it's hard to be an introvert and be a director because you have to be engaged with people and talking to people and telling them what you want and things of that nature. Was that a tough transition from you or for you when you were sort of very introverted and shy and sort of being put into these sort of situations and do you feel like that being in plays was what actually got you out of sort of being super introverted?
A bit of both. I was kind of a bitch as a child, to be completely honest. I was pretty bossy towards my friends, but I couldn't like get my mouth open for anything else. And so to some extent it was fine and I was okay, but then I just as soon as I got over that like, oh hey, everybody doesn't have to do what I say all the time. Wow, imagine that. I kind of got more quiet again and then decided that I was just sick of it. I had things to say and I was bored and tired of being so nervous all the time, so I just decided to stop being nervous. Which sounds bizarre, but that is in fact what I did. And then I was kind of going into like middle school or high school, I don't remember now. And that's kind of when the acting kind of flourished. But there was still that element of, okay, but I can be somebody else for a little bit. And that's easier. So I don't have to constantly have that struggle of like, am I nervous? Am I self conscious? And how much do I care about it?
Gotcha. So what was the first film that you did here in Nebraska?
It has never been released to my knowledge, but it was called I Am Ranger with Grim Tenacity.
I'm going to segue again because I think this is another interesting thing. I think we asked this of Nicole, maybe, or no, maybe it was Skylar. As an actor, you work on these projects and then they never get released, right? How does that make you feel as an actor? Would you prefer the thing to just be out there, or would you, regardless of the quality of it, or would you prefer to sort of defer to, well, okay, ultimately it's the director's call, it's their movie. I understand going in that whatever I film, Pigface 2 may never see the light of day. I understand that going in.
Yeah, it's
What are your thoughts on acting in something and then it's someone says, "Oh, I'm just never going to release it"?
I feel like I'm going to be in the minority for this, but I feel like the actor's job is very small within it. Like they're not usually much of a part of pre and they're not much of a part of post. They are just a real small bit in the middle and that's their job. And they come in and they do their job and then they leave. And the rest is up to the directors and the editors. Because ultimately, like, you can see that even if it's like a bad quality movie, you can still see if the acting is good. So like for that extent, you're like, oh great, then it's out there. But the part that they're working on is the part that their name is attached to. And so if they want it out or if they don't want it out, that's completely up to them.
Do you have have you seen that version or have you seen that first film Did they put out anything for the actors to watch at all?
Um, no, I asked to get a little bit for reels,
Okay.
and they gave me the bits that I was in. The reason it never has seen the light of day is that half of it was supposed to be in flashback, and their flashback was going to be animated. So they have all of
Oh.
the voiceover and everything, but I think they were having issues either finding an animator or the animator having time to do such a lengthy project.
What was your on-set experience like on that first film? Like kind of
It
what
was
you like
great.
and
I was super nervous, had no idea what to expect. It was at somebody's house, so initially going in, I'm just like, I'm gonna get kidnapped. I did. It's been always a constant worry when you're first starting something is, am I gonna get kidnapped? And haven't yet, to my knowledge. But going in, everybody was super professional and really nice. I ended up working with a lot of people I've worked with since and really enjoyed and have pretty big names for themselves within the business. And it was really fast. They had 2 cameras set up. It was one location. It wasn't a lot of, okay, let's go from this angle, let's go from this angle. Instead, it was literally, let's do this scene about 3 times, and then you're done with it and you're moving on.
Getting back to, circling back around to what we were talking about beforehand, the transition between, being on stage and in film, and how you say you might actually like the film process a little bit more than being on stage. Give us your reasons why. What in your mind makes film a better medium for acting in your view?
I didn't say better. I didn't say better.
But it
Um,
is. We all know.
I like the totality and the different elements that you can bring into film that you can't with theater acting. Like you can do forced perspectives and then the background music, and there's so many other elements that you can bring into this story that helps the audience get from point A to point B. And that stuff with like camera angles and whatnot. And you can be outside and you can move and go to different locations instead of just having a stationary audience and moving what's in front of them, which is super magical, but it's not outside. You're still inside.
Yeah.
And opposed to film, like you actually are outside and you're getting sunburnt and eaten by ticks, but
yes,
um,
never live it down.
but it's still there. The thing I will say, like conversely, that I kind of miss though about theater is the rehearsal process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of rehearsal and character building and spending that time with your cast and getting to know them and building that relationship, and you have weeks to do that. And then just popping into, especially with short films, you film for 3 days. If you've never met these people before, you're just like, hi, you're my husband, and then I'm gonna leave. So your chemistry has to happen really fast. You have to do all of your work for your character before it, and I don't feel like you get as much influence from other actors and what they're bringing in, because I feel like in theater characters are shaped together. You have all of your outside stuff, but then someone says something a different way than you've ever thought of it, and wow, that changes everything about my character. And you can do that on the fly in film, which is I think is interesting because sometimes you get very genuine reactions that way. But that lack of, I mean, not lack, but not having that traditional rehearsal process and structure is very different, which I think creates very different performances just in general.
There's also no safety net in theater. Like you have a major safety net when you do film. If you go up on camera, you call line, you get fed your line, and you move on. If you go up in live theater, you got to figure it the fuck out. And it kind of makes it exciting, really, because, if you are live with somebody, that someone's either going to reach out and try to figure out how to feed it to you, or you just got to figure out how to move on. So I love the non-safety net feature of doing theater.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really intriguing. I've definitely been the one to feed the line. I've definitely been the one to go up on the line.
Yeah.
and it's kind of terrifying, and you can do it either way. It's a lot less perfect and polished than film, and I think that's a good thing to have those differences, but yeah. And then if you turn wrong, if you go to the wrong place, you put something back in the wrong place, you're just like, well,
Yeah.
fuck, I have to either fix that later
Because
or something's gonna go wrong down the line for somebody else and I can't do anything about it.
it's really interesting that you said that you got into film during COVID, because so that you haven't been doing this that long. And it feels
No.
like, I mean, uh, it feels like you've done a ton of stuff since you started doing film work. You've done a ton of stuff in a very small amount of time. So what kind
Yeah.
of characters do
Been
you
very
usually get cast as, Megan? Like, what kind of characters do you play mostly, and what kind of characters do you want to play?
Yeah, I've been super fortunate. Started in November of 2020 and then have done a lot since. I feel like I do generally get cast as like the girl next door. Um, Originally got cast a little bit at the as the ditz, and then people met me and they're like, "Oh no, she can't do that. Poor thing." I am very bad at playing the ditz. I don't know what it is. Um, but I've really enjoyed all of the things I have played, and really they kind of are in that wheelhouse of like what I want to do. Um, because I know like doing big action sequences isn't really like in anybody's budget in Omaha or Lincoln, because it's certainly not in mine, and I'm not paying for it. Um, so that would be fun in the future, something like that. I always think something kind of psychotic is fun, just because it's absolutely unhinged and not something you get to do in your day to day life, or even really see in your day to day life. At least I don't. But I'm not in customer service anymore.
Yeah.
Question about sort of choosing roles and stuff. Since you're so sort of new on the scene, I think I even cast you in one of my films before I
Ooh.
took a
Mhm.
nuke to the entire whole thing I was making and blew it up. And we won't get into the reasons why that all happened. But you're very very talented, and I'm curious, like when you're getting these scripts and stuff, how do you approach whether or not you're going to accept a role or not? Is it something like, oh, someone's cast me in this, I'm just definitely going to work on it, or do you sort of like more selective about what roles you take and what you've been offered?
I've been super fortunate, and the things that people have offered me have either already been very good scripts that I was super excited to take and go into, or stuff that was written with me in mind. Um, so going into it, it already kind of fit my style and what I was more interested in doing. So I have not had to be super selective. There's things where I'll read like a casting call and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do those themes and those elements, then I just won't audition. Because you can't get chosen if your name's never in the hat. um, and there's only really been one where I was offered and I was like, no, I can't do that. And that really was just because originally going into it, it was going to work out time wise, it was going to work out location wise. And then the original director had to drop out and it was going to change like to rehearse in Omaha every day instead of Lincoln. And that was going to be like after a job, and that was going to be stage again. So a lot more rehearsal time. And I had negotiated going into it because the way it was written was not super descriptive on how things were going to work. And there were some, we're just going to call it some spicy elements to it that were a little rough. And so I negotiated into it. I said, I won't do it unless there is an intimacy coordinator on set. And when the new director changed, I didn't know if they were going to keep that or if that other person, like maybe their timeline changed and they only knew that one person, they were doing it as a favor. I didn't know. So I ended up dropping out of that one. but that's the only one that I've had to go back and say, actually, no.
Do you ever feel like I know, Josh and I have been making movies here in Nebraska for a long, long time. And I remember back in the day, when we were young pups, shall we say, um, there was there always seemed to be, there's a finite amount of filmmakers in Nebraska. Even though there's a lot of projects happening, it's not like we have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of filmmakers, and there's just constant casting calls every single day of new stuff. I remember back in the day, a lot of actors would be very concerned because they would never want to say no to somebody because they feel like they would burn a bridge with that person. They're like, oh, Megan said no to my movie. I'm never going to consider her at all in the future for something. I mean, that some people in this scene, that's how they sort of thought about it. It was kind of like I don't know if it was like a revenge thing or just sort of, go kick rocks. Do you ever feel like that could be a concern? Like if somebody were to say, hey, here, I really want you for this part, and then you read it and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Are you concerned that you could burn a bridge or something? Or are you just like, look, here are my lines. These are the things I'm not going to do. And, if I don't work with you ever again in the future, oh, well, no skin off my back.
A bit of both. I mean, there's always that concern of like, well, hopefully I didn't come across as like insulting to their script or whatever. There is like, yep, that's a hard line and limit. I don't want to deal with that content or something like that. There's definitely a concern of like, well, hopefully they'll still work with me in the future. But I think for the most part now, with the people I do know, um, I don't know if we're just on the same wavelengths in terms of like content and hard lines and limits, but I've not really had it come up where I'm just like, because of this content, the answer is no. It's almost always been because of my schedule, I might have to say yes or no.
Yeah, schedules, Josh.
Yeah, I'm really terrible at those, really bad. So we don't need to talk about scheduling.
We have a whole other
Yeah.
episode on scheduling. People go listen to.
One of the things that we kind of talked about with Jenny and Skylar in Nicole are opportunities for actors, or this rift between Lincoln and Omaha, where there's this kind of really weird like separation, I guess. Like it's right now a lot of the film projects going on right now. It's a lot of it's in Omaha, and you're in Lincoln, right? So are you finding a lot more projects kind of going on there? Are you in more projects going on in Omaha, or are you kind of seeing an even amount in Lincoln and Omaha?
No, I would say there's definitely more going on in Omaha. Even if the people kind of creating it are in Lincoln, they're choosing to go to Omaha to film. I've seen that a little bit. I feel like there is just more generally going on in Omaha, and I don't know if that's because of UNO's program or something like that. I find myself actually doing a lot of stuff in like Plattsmouth and Kearney,
Okay.
just kind of in a very different direction. I'm not entirely certain how I stumbled into that, but I definitely see more going on in Omaha than I do in Lincoln. And I think it's definitely true that you see it a lot in anywhere. And this is even true of individual companies. But nobody likes to audition. Everybody just gets sick of it. They don't like the planning or the prep, or they're like, well, what if I don't get the right person because it's on this day or whatever? And it's just easier to ask your friends to do it, the people that you already know.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of the times it's, like especially in Omaha, if you don't already know them, well, they're not going to put out a casting call, so you don't have a chance anyway.
So you don't feel like you're missing any opportunities or anything because you're in Lincoln and a lot of stuff's going on outside of here?
Because I'm willing to drive to Omaha, not as much. But I do feel like more is happening there, and if I had already known the people and maybe lived there, there would be more opportunities for me, if that makes any sense.
So go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead, Josh.
I'm just curious, like, what are some of your favorite projects you've worked on? What are some of your favorite roles that you've played, and why is it Danny from Pigface 2? I'm kidding. What are some of your favorite roles you've done, and what's kind of some of your favorite projects that you would, I guess, kind of point people towards, that you'd want people to see?
See, but it is Danny from Pigface.
No, it's okay. You don't have to say that. What are some of for real though? What are some of your favorite projects?
No, it actually is Danny. She just had, I think, partially because it was a feature film that there was more time to have her. And
Was that your first feature? Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to cut you off. Was that your first feature film?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Megan.
Um,
What an experience.
you always say that, but I had a really good time. And just because there was more time to play with her, there was this obvious beginning and obvious like end point in this arc for her that was really satisfying to see. It was almost funny going back and doing pickups. I was like, oh man, she's come a long ways from where we were. Like, I don't it was almost funny to go back. And then I did a short film called Prone that was really fun just because it was very different than anything I had done before and really enjoyed working with that director. And I think that's not out yet, but I think it will be probably entered into film festivals soon.
Cool.
What stuff that you've been in is out that people can go see? Is there anything up like on YouTube or?
One thing.
Okay, what is that?
Moving in Stereo.
It's great. It's so good.
It was really, really fun to do. That was, again, one of the first, and kind of stumbled into it in a weird way. I am not sure where you could find it, because it is kind of still making some rounds in film festivals. The only other one that would be possible to see is called Familial Strangers, and that director is working on a different project coming up here in September. And he's giving people, like, if you go and donate to his new campaign for that new film, then he will give you access to Familial Strangers and you can watch it.
It's also very good.
So, I mean, you're here, you're with Josh. I love putting him in awkward, uncomfortable situations. So let's talk about your experience on the set of Pigface 2. So tell me a little bit about Josh as a director. You've worked with many different directors now, and I'm not saying be mean about it or anything, but tell me why he sucks. No, I'm just kidding. Tell me how, because you were dealing with two sort of different like co-directors on that, right? Patrick and Josh. So tell me a little bit about the differences between the two of them and how their directorial styles were different.
Before she jumps, she mainly before she jumps, she mainly dealt with Patrick, and that was 90% of everybody on that set. I really only directed some of the death scenes. And Danny or Megan did not have to deal with that. So, in fairness,
see how he's backtracking, Megan. He's running away from it.
I'm not running
Why
away.
are you getting so defensive?
I'm being honest. Like, I really didn't direct a lot of that film. So, anyway, I'm going to put you on mute now, Megan. So go ahead and torch away.
I'd say the biggest difference is that Patrick goes in almost with a theatrical approach. And then Josh goes in kind of with, okay, what frames do we need? How do we need to set it up? And like, where do you need to stand for this practical effect to take place? So Patrick kind of goes in with like, okay, let's look at the acting standpoint, and we need to build to here, so maybe we need to start with here. And I want to make sure that the camera goes from here to here to make this statement or whatnot. And then Josh is looking at the camera and being like, whatever you're gonna do is fine as long as we get to here in order for us to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I witnessed that very thing happen on set.
One of us,
Josh, you're a good director. Josh,
in that co-directing situation, one of us is an actor, and the other one was me. So, in fairness, again, when it comes to working with actors, Patrick is really great. So,
But you were a stage actor, were you not?
I have acted in a couple of things that I put myself in because nobody else would do it. So that partly counts.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Megan,
No, I
how do you
think both
prefer?
acting approaches are good. It just depends on the actor on which one they're gonna be like, this is the one I need today for this specific scene or this moment. I think both of them are good styles to have.
How do you prefer to be directed, right? So are you someone who you would prefer the director to sort of like really micromanage, be like, this is what I want, this is what I want you to give me, do this, and this, or are you more open to just sort of like a director saying, hey, do what you want to do, and if I have a problem with it, I will let you know and direct you. Like, do you want that sort of micromanage, that constant feedback? Or are you more just sort of loosey goosey? Hey, I'm doing my thing unless I'm told it's not good.
I'm fine with either. I don't know if I really have a preference. I know that my like training was kind of in do what you do. We'll tell you if you have a problem. No news is good news, sort of a thing. But I feel like that works best if you have a lot of trust with the director. And that is the whole thing is such a process of trust because you have to trust that they want it to be the best that it can be and they want you to be the best that they can be. Like, and everybody wants the project to succeed. So you're just like, they'll tell me if it looks shitty because that's not the product that they want either. Um, but if it's super technical and specific, like I need you to stand right here in order to block this light and make sure everything is seamless in terms of editing. I don't know how any of it works. Then I'm just like, you tell me where to stand and we'll get there to make it easier on this end.
Okay. How do you build trust? Because I think that's what you said is 1,000% correct. Every actor has to be able to trust their director because the actors, generally speaking, don't really know what. Like, okay, the camera's being set up here. What kind of angles are they getting? Oh, what exactly are they showing here? How do you build that trust with a director? Stage director, obviously, it's a lot easier, right? Because you say you go through tons of rehearsals, you're building that sort of rapport. Sometimes a lot of these micro budget films, you're just kind of parachuting in, like for example, the first film you ever did, you said you were nervous you might get kidnapped, right? How did you build trust with that director when you're on set?
So it's kind of a two-phase process almost, at least it was for me. It needs to really start with trusting yourself and knowing that you can act well. And or you are whatever it is that you have is what they were looking for and they cast you in said role because of what you are personally bringing to it. And you just kind of need to get over yourself past that. Um like anybody can do the job, but they wanted you for it. Therefore, work your ass off, go into it with an open mind, but knowing that you're bringing something to it. And so you have to trust yourself because if you don't trust yourself, then you're always asking the questions like, "Did you get what you needed? Was that okay?" And nobody has time for that. At least in the theater setting, and what I was trained and taught is nobody has time for you to ask a million questions to see if you tilted your head right. You just kind of have to trust that you're doing what needs to be done, and that if you're not, that someone's going to say something. And then conversely, if you want like building trust with other people, I think is for me personally based a little bit on just the rapport that you can build kind of quickly and whether or not everybody on set is being professional. Like if they're going into it and everybody is just kind of a loose cannon, then you're like, oh boy, okay, this is like if nobody knows what they're doing yet, completely fine. Everybody has to start somewhere. But that's the point when you're almost like wanting to make suggestions, but that's not your job, so you don't. Um, and instead of like people being like, "Yep, we're gonna do this and this and this," and you're like, "Cool, you seem to know what you want, and so I'm just gonna let you do it, and I trust it."
Have you ever had an experience on any set that you've been on where you've sort of had a disagreement with a director, but whether or not you vocalized it to them or not, but you're just sort of being like, "Wow, I do not think that this should be going the way it's going."
Can I plead the fifth?
You can say Josh. You can say Josh's name. It's
Go,
fine.
go.
He's
I'd
right
love to
here.
hear
No,
this
it's
stuff.
not that. It was
I'm
a
a
very
fan.
different project.
I have a feeling I
Yes.
know what project Megan is talking about.
I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Yes, it was a different project. This was still when I was fairly new, so I didn't really know what I was going into it, and they were also fairly new, but I feel like I mostly do work with directors that are kind of just starting, and that's, like I said, completely fine. You got to start somewhere and build the trust along the way. But on that particular set, I didn't think that the time management was great, and it did not appear to me within the multiple times going and filming that that time management um, was ever reconsidered or restructured to be more efficient. And I did not think that my safety was ever held um, in like the forefront of anyone's mind. That they're like, yeah, we'll do this, this, and this, and I'm just like, no. And from what the very little training I've had in combat, what I knew, they were not following those rules, and I got very nervous.
Yeah, safety is a big thing, right? So on any film sets, you never want to have a horrible situation where like you kill one of your actors or you injure them or anything like that. Like that's but it's weird though because we do a lot of horror films, right? And with horror films, there's inherently some sort of element of danger that will happen, whether it's spraying blood all over the place or sharp objects being like wielded and bandied about at certain points. So we take our time to try to make sure everything's safety, safety, safety. But there's definitely been times where I've been on sets. I won't name who, Benito. It was like maybe Benito should not have like turned up the pressure valve that high or something, try to choke and kill our actress and things of that nature. So it's sort of weird, and I absolutely think that all actors, if any actors are watching this, listen to this, like your safety is of utmost importance, right? If you are not comfortable with something, say it. Say that you're not comfortable. Don't keep yourself in a situation where you feel like you might, lose an eyeball or, or something like that because it's not worth it, guys. It's absolutely not worth it. Josh, did you have any weird, any semi dangerous things that happened on the set of Pig
Well,
Face
yeah,
2?
she said safety and time management, and I was like, she's talking about Pig Face too. This sucks.
No,
Yeah.
No, we didn't have anything crazy really go on as far as I remember for safety on Pigface. Uh,
Other than the Lyme disease that we were all
Other
getting
than
from the
the Lyme
ticks.
disease and the ticks, yeah. But I mean, everything was pretty well. Like we talk to everybody before we do something, and make sure everybody is comfortable before we do an effect or anything like that. I think like the most dangerous thing we really even did was the final kind of combat between Megan and Jesse, and even then, that was all Patrick had that all like fight choreographed and everything. So there was never a position really that we put them in that they should have gotten hurt. So yeah,
Okay. Well, that's good. Good for
I
you,
know we tried.
Josh. Good for keeping a safe set. I would have probably gotten it on film had it not had you been lying. So, Megan, what is the worst thing about being like on a local film set, just in general? But you're an actor, sort of. You come in, and what is the thing? Because everybody has one, right? I have them. It's just like, why is this taking so fucking long? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? What is the thing that when you're on a film set that you're just like, ugh, I hate this?
generally, I'm just so thrilled to be there that there isn't anything that comes to mind immediately. Um, or it was my fault. Like filming outside, and I'm just like, oh man, I really wish like we were in a shady area because I forgot sunscreen, and that's my fault. And so now I'm worried about getting sunburnt, and it's my fault.
Oh man, why didn't Josh write this as an indoor movie?
Why is it 105 degrees today? Yeah, sorry.
Is there anything that what's the thing that you love the most when you're on set? You know, you're showing up for a local film and you're like, I cannot wait to be on set because this is going to happen.
Honestly, just when the camera starts rolling, it's just kind of magical because you meet all these people, and like a really funny example is Jesse and his pig face makeup because he's so well spoken and kind and sweet, and then as that character, he doesn't make any noises and he's a murderer, so like the opposite. And then just kind of seeing that juxtaposition of people of like getting to know them, like talking, and then once you start filming, everybody changes into their new characters. You see the camera people getting really into what they're doing, the directors watching and observing and really enjoying it, and then just watching something that never existed before now exist.
Awesome. So tell us what you got coming up. What are the next projects that you're going to actively film, and then what films are being released soon, and where could people potentially find them?
Yeah. I've got Class of 05 filming in September, and then Nervous Records kind of takes over entirely.
Yeah.
Which is super exciting. And a couple of pilots being filmed in Omaha, and that we'll do a couple of those and then decide which ones look best and we want to pursue. And then maybe something in December or November, we'll see. As to when they'll come out and where can you find them at? That's kind of the answer I give my parents too. Because they'd like to know where that college money's going. Like, hey, we paid, 4 years. We'd like to see the outcome. And I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give them the director's phone number. Say,
yeah,
call this director, Mom.
Best guess is they were going to make some film festival things first. So maybe something will occur at Flatwater. And best guess is that's where you would find it next.
Now, is acting like what you want to do as your full-time career, or is this sort of like a hobby that you just like to do on the side? Like, what is your goal? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Megan?
Acting. That is the full-time goal and career, and then maybe having like 5 dogs on the side.
Okay.
But yeah, acting would be the number one career.
Do you feel then that at some point in the future you're going to have to make the jump out of Nebraska? Because that's a big thing with the actors here. I've encountered so many actors who are like, yeah, I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. And then eventually they're like, but if I want to get paid for this, I have to jump. I gotta go to California, or I gotta go to Georgia, or I gotta go, up to Canada, Vancouver or something, to be able to find actual paying gigs that I could support myself for a career. Is that something that you'd be looking to do in the future, is making the leap out of state?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think if I do want to do it full time, then I would have to, which is so sad because I've met so many wonderful people here and had so many amazing opportunities. And there's part of me that's just like, well, I could get my pilot's license and just like pop back to Nebraska every once in a while.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, that's what Josh, do you have any final questions for Megan?
I think you kind of wrapped it up with what do you got coming up. So that's all I really had as well. So
Okay. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on the Once More for Safety show. It's a pleasure to have you. You're a fantastic and talented actress. I wish I would have had a chance to direct you in that Killer Scarecrow movie. Would have been fantastic. But you never know.
Never got to hear the Valley Girl accent. What a shame.
Who knows? Who knows what may happen in the future? We can never see the future, right? But yeah, so thank you so much for being on. It's been fantastic. And do you have like a website or anything? Like, where can people go to find you if a director's watching this? He's like, oh yeah, I'd really like to, send her an audition notice or something. How can people find you?
Yeah, I have an Instagram, my professional Instagram, which is, I believe, mm_acting.
Okay, so directors, go there. It's worth it. She's a great
Yeah.
actress for sure. And with that, I mean, she works even with bad directors like Josh, and she makes the films even better than what they would have been.
1,000%. I agree.
Just I kid Josh all the time. I have a feeling that some people might watch this and just think, well, Matt just hates Josh. He just hates him. But it's not true. And I've told this to Josh before. Josh is a fantastic person, and he's an excellent director and a very creative individual that I respect highly. So
It's his hatred of orange slices that really does it for you.
yeah, I mean, if he was just like, yeah, Matt, orange slices are pretty damn good, I would have no problem with them. But he's got to just, be who he is. Like Michael Scott, why are you the way you are? You're like my Toby. So with that, everybody, and cut.